Hello and welcome to another Tabletop Games Blog Saturday review.
It was dark and damp. Of course, that was not unusual for the Takora Cave, a giant underground system which was strewn with precious jewels and priceless artifacts. Those were the reasons why we were here in the first place. Armed with our torches, we explored one tunnel after another, always mindful of traps. Sooner or later, one of us would get scared and make their way back to the entrance with a share of the treasure we had found so far. The rest of us continued, praying we would not fall foul of another trap and lose everything. After all, we wanted to get rich and find the most Diamant by Bruno Faiduti and Alan R. Moon from Yellow. No, the Takora Cave doesn't exist. It's just a great name for a set of tunnels with endless caverns and plentiful traps that would make even intrepid fictional explorers, such as Indiana Jones, break out in a cold sweat and weigh up the chances of getting out with the treasure intact, before pushing on and on into the darkness until terrible spiders, a giant round boulder, or some other lethal contraption would put an end to the exploration and lose them all the valuables they have collected underground. In fact, the name Takora Cave is so cleverly chosen that when you search the internet for it, you will only find pages or videos about this wonderfully family-friendly push-luck game. I assume the name Diamant is based on the German word for diamond. It's these precious little jewels that you want to collect to win. Mind you, in the game there are two types of plastic gem tokens, red and clear. The red rubies are worth 1 point each, while the clear diamonds are worth 5. As you explore each tunnel system, you put out rubies that players can collect. At any time, you can exchange 5 rubies for 1 diamond. That's all pretty straightforward. The plastic gems are gorgeous. As I've mentioned before, in my review of Karuba for example, it's one of the few occasions where I think plastic is the right choice. Seeing the jewels glint on the table is so atmospheric and exciting. Anyway, I digress. Diamant is a competitive game where you push your luck. As a group, you enter the first of 5 tunnels. Each tunnel consists of tiles drawn from a shuffled deck. Most tiles offer up a certain number of jewels, each worth 1 point. Others have artifacts on them, which represent larger chunks of points. Unfortunately, there are also 5 different types of traps. Draw the second tile of the same trap type and the journey is over. All treasure is lost and you go back to camp. Luckily, before you proceed to the next tile, everyone votes if they want to continue or go back to camp. Everyone secretly chooses 1 or 2 cards to lock in their decision. Once everyone has picked their cards, they're all revealed. Players who decided to return to the entrance take their collected treasures with them, while the rest waits anxiously for what the next tile has in store for them. Treasure is always split evenly. As the group enters a cave with jewels in it, everyone gets the same amount, with any remainder placed under the cave tile itself. So in a 5-player game, in a cave with 13 rubies in it, everyone gets 2, and the remaining 3 are left in the tunnel. It's this division of loot that can sometimes slow down the game a little, unless you're good with numbers. Mind you, it doesn't take too long to pick up 13 rubies and go around the group and give everyone 1 of the gems until there aren't enough left. If in doubt, you can always use the calculator on your phone, of course. The good thing for those who return to camp is that they don't just keep the rubies they have collected on the journey so far, but also evenly divvy up those gems that were left on the tiles. So those 3 jewels from my example above can look very tasty if you're the only one who decides not to continue. That is, until the next tile has an even bigger amount of rubies on it, of course. Also, as more and more players leave the group to go back to their tents and stash their treasure, the remaining group gets smaller, meaning that everyone ends up with a bigger share. It's this clever little mechanism which really is just very simple arithmetic and nothing particularly magical or special that makes Diamant so great. When there are only 2 of you left and the next cavern tile has an amazing 10 jewels on it, each of you gets a deliciously huge heap of 5 gems. Of course, carrying treasure through an underground tunnel system is fraught with risks. As I mentioned, if your group reveals a second trap of the same type, it's all over. Everyone who hasn't yet gone back to their tent has to return everything they gathered on this journey to the depths of the caves. Only the treasure that was brought back to the camp is safe. So it's all for the taking when you all embark on your very first adventure. Nobody has yet collected any jewels or artifacts. Your pockets are empty and your spirits are high. Once the first player rushes back to the cave entrance with a large handful of jewels, the pressure starts to increase. When you finally enter the 3rd or 4th tunnel, some of you know that's now all or nothing. Other explorers will have already banked a good 10 to 20 gems, while you're still on a miserly 4 or 5. It's clear that you just have to keep pushing forward into the darkest and probably dampest depths of the cave system, traps or no traps. If you can manage to find a precious artifact, ideally as the only one left underground, and still make it out alive, you can turn a loss into a last-minute victory. Of course, the more you pray that the next tile presents you with the riches you need, the more likely it is to be a trap that drags you to your doom. I think Diamant is deliciously devious. It all starts light and fluffy, but soon becomes tense and full of anguish. Table talk will be likely as players try to psych each other out, hoping their nerves will get the better of them. At the same time though, it is a really wonderful family game. It's very quick to explain and pretty quick to play at the same time. I don't think I've played a single game that took longer than 20 minutes. Of course, you can draw it out and raise suspense by allowing players to try and negotiate what they might or might not do, especially if you don't play with younger kids. At the same time, even young kids will understand what they need to do. It's also a great way of practicing some basic arithmetic with them. So Diamant definitely appeals to a wide range of player ages. It's also great for people who like games to tell a story. The Indiana Jones vibes are clear, not only because of the boulder trap. You're in a jungle, everyone has pitched a tent, and you're about to head underground into an unknown cave system. Your imagination is bound to have a field day if you let it. Alternatively, you can play it more like a poker game and keep it more serious. It's really up to you and the people you play with. Diamant will most definitely appeal to lots of different people. Either way, if you get a chance, then I strongly recommend you give the game a try. I doubt that you will be disappointed.
Thank you for listening to this Tabletop Games Blog Saturday Review podcast. Please check the description below for links mentioned in this episode, as well as to the written version of this article on the blog. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, give us some stars or leave a review. Please also tell your friends about me, and if you want to offer financial support, check out my Patreon and Ko-fi pages, links to which you'll find in the blog at tabletopgamesblog.com. So thank you again for listening, and I hope to see you again soon.
This podcast was made possible by the generous help of my supporters. Royal Patron Sean Newman, Magic Champion John Risley, Castle Guards David Miller and James Naylor, Dice Masters Alex Bardi, Paul Grogan and Robin Kay, and Shining Lights Jacob Davis, Gavin Jones, Sarah Reed and Richard Simpson.